let's get into it. Let's talk about our real jobs or maybe our not real jobs.
I have to say that the money I've made from TikTok in 2024 or Instagram doing brand deals is not real at all.
Fake.
It's not helping to sustain my life at all. It is not real.
It's so funny. I actually made like a tweet about this years ago when I was first starting YouTube blogging back then. Because people would always say, oh, that little blog that you have, oh, that, fun
Hmm.
hobby, whatever. And I remember I booked my very first trip to New York. I paid for me and my college boyfriend to go to New York City from YouTube money. And that was like a really big moment, I think, in my
Hmm.
career because I was like, no, this is real. Like it has tangible effects, and obviously
Yeah.
that's just financial, but there's lots of other things that make it a real job, in my opinion. But
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, the money is what helps things, like a lot of things. And to switch a career to even be doing this and making enough to get by on a good salary, to me is just wild. I mean, this past year, I've probably had my best year in terms of content creation. And I think that I've kind of had that moment this year of, whoa, that was great. Like, even I remember back in January, I said, I could either get some brand deals, no brand deals, or I feel like I'm gonna get a lot. But I said I feel like I'm either gonna get a lot or I'm gonna get not a lot. And sure enough, they were coming through. It was consistent. I was being consistent with my content creation. So I think a lot was going right. Because I think that is the fear that I think a lot of people experience with content creation is it's not consistent. But I
mhm.
feel like me being consistent this year with my content creation helped prove to me that as long as I can keep that, then maybe I can also keep the brand deals consistent too.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like what defines a real job, right? It's like you do something for money, essentially. I mean, like, is there anything I'm missing from that?
No, I don't think so.
Like you do a service or you sell something in exchange for money. I think the to me, it's like if you treat content creation like a real job, it can, I don't want to say it absolutely will, but it can absolutely become a real job. I think if you treat content creation like a hobby, like it's just something for fun, like it's a second, third thought in your mind, then it
Yeah.
won't be a real job and it'll just be for fun. And I think that's valid. I think not everybody needs or wants to become a full time career content creator,
Right.
but yeah, you have to treat it like a job. I mean, back in those days that I was talking about with the New York City trip, I mean, I was hustling. These were in my like hustle, like breaking ground YouTube days where I was uploading 3 to 5 times a week on YouTube. I was taking it really seriously. I didn't miss an upload. Um, and yeah, it paid off, but I don't think you can kind of just like willy-nilly it. I mean, maybe you can, but most people most people don't have that luxury.
I mean, I've even talked to people that after doing it for years would say, "Oh, I still don't even understand how the algorithm works." And
Mhm.
I said, like, that's not the type of person that can probably make a career out of it. Because if you don't understand how you're kind of operating, how you're kind of doing content and why it's working and how you're making money, then
Mhm.
you can't really repeat that and keep it going to me. I
Yeah.
feel like people should really view themselves as almost like an ad agency. And maybe me having this huge digital marketing background really made me see how being a content creator can be a career, it can make good money, and understanding how that works at the top of the funnel, we'll say, with these big companies. I mean, if you really look at, let's say, would you consider the person that started Netflix having a job? Like their job was creating and starting Netflix. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And Netflix, if you think about it, the content on it is really just the advertisement to get you to buy a subscription.
Mhm.
So if you think about that from your own content perspective, for anyone who's maybe wondering how content creation can be more of that career, that's really the foundation of it. You're creating all this content, for me at least, and maybe I resonate more with like the Netflix example because I make content to entertain. For you, it's more educate. So there's that alternative side to it. I feel like, as people are paying with my ads that they might see every now and then to continue watching my content. And I feel like
Mhm.
that really is the foundation that sets people up right.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too. I think you really do have to pick a lane somewhat in that. Because at first I was going to say, well, maybe content creation isn't a job if you're just creating content, like, and you're just entertaining for like, or whatever. But I
Hmm.
actually, I disagree with 5 minute ago me, because I think, my lane, if you will, yes, I'm a content creator. I always hesitate. Like, I don't really describe myself as a content creator. Only until recently have I really started like embodying that, because
Hmm.
I'm like, no, I own a marketing company. Like, my content fuels my business. My content fuels education, product sales, services, other things that I do. It's not that my content necessarily, is the big money maker on its own.
Right.
So I think there's that lane is you can choose, yeah, am I going to be a business owner and sell something or provide some type of service? But like I said, 5 minutes ago, me, backtracking in that entertainment is a business too. Cause like, I don't know, is Angelina Jolie, does she have a job? I mean,
Right.
no, she doesn't have
No, no.
she doesn't have a traditional job. She's, actors and musicians really are kind of like the ultimate gig workers in that they get paid per
Sure.
project. They, sometimes they're going to have really high incomes, some years they're not going to make anything, and so that trajectory, I think, is one that we can look to as creators. But I certainly still wouldn't say, maybe Angelina doesn't currently have a job right now, I don't know, but she certainly has a career, you know.
Yes. And maybe for people kind of maybe trying to get that confidence, like you were kind of just saying for yourself with calling yourself a content creator. And I mean, that's the reason why we really started this podcast. I think
Mhm.
partly because we see this future where content creators can be everywhere and be
Mhm.
having careers that could be a career path. And I think that those lanes kind of will start to develop once, like, we'll say universities or any educational platform out there starts deciding the lanes for people to
Yeah.
say, hey, do you want to start an educational channel? Do you want to, like, I'm more Netflix, you're more masterclass
Mhm.
in terms of our platforms.
Yeah.
And then also for both of us, we're kind of both ad agencies at the same time too. So maybe
Yeah.
that will be a lane, but you really can't have the ad agency without the product or service per se. So for anyone kind of wanting to gain that confidence, really start to picture yourself as these bigger entities. Like you are way more than what you could even imagine, I think. And
Mhm.
that's where I think a lot of creators I talk to get it wrong. They don't understand. This kind of ties back to our brand deal video. People don't know they're worth as much. And when
Yeah.
you start picturing yourself as I'm the Netflix, but for Michigan content. I'm the
Mhm.
masterclass, but for freelancing. You start to feel, I think, a lot more empowered to go after what you want. And when it comes to brand deals, really get those amounts of money that can help make it a career,
Yeah.
essentially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think so. So yeah, I agree. It's clear it is a job. It does have a career path. There is earning potential. But I think two things I want to talk about in today's episode. First of all, is the reality of being a content creator,
Ooh.
because I do think that there is this perception that all content creators are like rich and,
Yeah.
have no worries in the world and whatever. So that, but I also want to talk about kind of more on that perception, because I think when people say, "Oh, get a real job," like when people leave those comments and stuff like that, I think they're rooted in a lot of just weird perceptions, like negativity, maybe some jealousy. Honestly, I see a lot of sexism, because like
Yeah.
content creation is widely, like, there's a lot of women who create content, young women who are making like a lot of money, and people don't like that, or any type of maybe traditionally less paid group. I think
Hmm.
people get a little angry about that. So I think it's rooted in a lot of things. I think people know that it is a real job that makes real money. I just think part of it is not really understanding the work that goes into it and the reality of what it is.
Yeah, to kind of add to that, just like start of the convo in terms of how it's perceived, I think you and I have connected a lot about this, is that some businesses when people see my landing page, which recommendation for everybody who wants to be maybe taken more seriously, I think my landing page on my business website for my content creation and brand deals and stuff really makes sure that people who approach me know that I mean business. I love what I do. I love creating content. I love making people laugh and smile, and it makes me, you have no idea how much it feeds my soul. But when it comes to if you're going to try to get money from me and pay me for it, I want to talk seriously about that.
Hmm.
So I think that that really helps because some people do end up approaching us like we're kids. And it's wild to me because, like, or just people approach with like this kind of unknowing about like how we operate. And I said, did you not see the 15 huge businesses I've already worked with in brand collabs? Like, did that
Yeah.
not signify to you to maybe, take this seriously like I would? And maybe that's because you and I both take our work very seriously too. And it's very held close to our hearts that it feels more annoying. I mean, to be honest, but I mean, I'm already giving the tea of this episode.
Yeah, no, for
That's
sure.
one thing.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people see content creation as this like, oh, it's just like young, cute, pretty people dancing around, like
Yeah,
whatever. And yeah, I get annoyed by that because it's like, first of all, I'm 33 years old. I don't think you should be treating anybody poorly, whether they're
right,
18 or whatever, but I'm 33 years old. I have a long resume working at Fortune 500 companies. Like, don't talk to me like I'm just some cute girl who is going to take $100 for this whatever. Like,
right,
if anything, if being paid anything. So yeah, I think there is a lot of that perception from brands or from the public that it's just like, oh, they should just be grateful that they're being invited or
right.
whatever. And it's like, no, this is a business that I'm running,
Yeah.
you know?
And if you're approaching me to try to make money off of me, and this is where I think I hope this podcast episode and this podcast in general really helps people get that empowerment because I see a lot of people getting taken advantage of in certain ways with things I'm connected to that I see like how much they're paying someone for full usage rights on 20 photos from an event or something. I'm sorry, but you need to like full usage rights on 20 high res photos. You're essentially giving a content creator $400 to set up an entire media campaign for a huge entity.
Hmm.
And to me, that's where, and I think that sometimes the businesses themselves don't even realize that that is what they're doing. They're just trying to set it up based on what they think is right. And I totally have sympathy for that. But yeah, I think that in the people not realizing it's this full-time job for a lot of people and it's how they get their livelihood. It's something they take very seriously and hold close to their heart. It's like almost talking to a director of a film about the film they just made.
Hmm.
Maybe then that will in time, and I think that's, podcasts like ours being out there and talking to people in time, I think that it will be taken more seriously.
Yeah, for sure. There's this quote. It's not a quote. I'm paraphrasing. I definitely read some article about it was about Taylor Swift. Okay. It's about Taylor Swift and about how basically just because it's something that a lot of like teenage girls like doesn't mean it's not valid as an art form or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, like I said. I remember one of my favorite English teachers. Actually, no, it wasn't an English teacher, it's a film teacher, young adult movies, like teen movies, how they're so undervalued in the cinema, the world of cinema, but they're actually like sometimes very good. Like they're very well made, but I think they get kind of delegitimized because a lot of young people like them, right?
Hmm.
And I think like that's a similar concept of what we're talking about. Like just because like young people like it, or because there are a lot of people who are young or whatever, that doesn't mean it's not a career. And I
Right.
do. I think that's what at the end of the day, I think a lot of people don't like to see like a 25-year-old from Minnesota making $1 million teaching people how to like use Microsoft Word or whatever. But
Right.
she's teaching people stuff. She's helping people.
Right.
Like let her live.
I think that that tie-in that you said about people not knowing what goes into it is a huge contributor to people not seeing it as serious of a job because people see even I mean I'm guarantee even though I get like little to no hate comments per se. I guarantee you someone watches my video and it's just like, hey, he's just talking to himself. I'm like, that's not even that much editing on like some of my Michigan accent videos and things like that. And I know they're like, how did this get? I mean, even sometimes for myself, it's funny how simple some of the videos are that get 2 million views in 3 days.
Yeah.
Which is wild and kind of shows that power that we know, but that other people don't make maybe that connection to.
Hmm.
But as we've talked about, I think it was in my story video of how much kind of led into me understanding why it's working, seeing the signs to make certain things a certain way. And alone, even if you want to talk about the really fundamentals of it, having a decent camera takes, like investment into saving up and making sure you can buy a good piece of equipment that maybe doesn't seem like a lot,
Yeah.
but definitely changes the game. I mean, even this microphone here is a good amount of
Hmm.
money that somebody would need to invest in to maybe make a nice high quality audio podcast. It's
Hmm.
like if you start watching content and look for little things that really change the game on certain people's content, you'll start to notice how much goes into even like a short form. I'm making a little script for myself each time. I'm practicing it. I'm editing down 30 minutes of video into 40 seconds.
Yeah.
It's an interesting hours. I mean, even with editing videos, editing long form takes hours, a whole work day to just get
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. So we've both worked in corporate. We've both had real jobs from all types. What was your first job, by the way?
First like corporate
No, first
job or
job.
like first
First
job
job.
ever. It was actually working at Express when I was
Nice.
like
Yeah.
16, and
Yeah.
it was the retail store for anybody
Yep.
wondering at
Yeah.
the mall.
Yeah. So I worked in retail too. My first job actually was a dishwasher at an Italian restaurant,
Oh, nice.
but really throughout high school and college, I worked retail. And then, yeah, like Ryan and I have both worked in corporate agencies, corporate companies, things like that. So would you say that as a content creator, I guess this is a two-part question.
Mhm.
Do you work more and or do you work harder?
Ooh, I would say I both. I mean, I would say that being a content creator was only possible because of my entrepreneurship and my freelancing, because it
Hmm.
allowed me flexibility with my time to make videos. That's a huge thing that I think people don't realize. Like, if I'm working a corporate job and having to go to an office throughout all hours of daylight, I probably can't come home and shoot a quick video or pile it all on the weekend. I could. I mean, I could batch record and just do everything on the weekend, sure. But I really realized that going into my entrepreneurship, and this will make sense with my content creation, that for the first 3 years, I didn't really even take a day off. I didn't realize it, that I literally didn't, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't open my laptop to try to get a new client, to look at a campaign, to manage some campaigns, to manage some social media. And I realized it's because though I liked what I was doing more. And
Hmm.
I always tell people that when I left my corporate job, the creative part of my brain, I can't explain it like in words, blew up. It
Hmm.
expanded. I was no longer bound by what task my manager would give me. It was,
Hmm.
I could do anything I want.
Hmm.
I could find any way to make money, and I can work as many hours as I want to make as much money as I really want.
Yeah.
Opportunities are really there. And so I would say though, in that I've kind of used that in my content creation area, like even this weekend, I think I worked about 3 hours or so on editing videos, thinking
Hmm.
of ideas, prepping stuff for this coming week.
Hmm.
And I wasn't mad about it. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm working harder and more, but it's on something that it feels more me.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel as mentally tasking as a manager giving me a report I don't want to do and having to do that report for hours. Like
Yeah.
even like a work day, like the equivalent, there's just so different.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I would say that I definitely work more, just entrepreneurship, running a business, content creation. I work way more.
Yeah.
I think as a content creator, and maybe we can get to like some pros and cons, but one of the things is you're never really offline. I mean, if I'm on vacation, I'm still like, I can't just completely ghost and leave DMs unread for months or,
Right.
whatever. Like, whereas in a corporate job, you can have somebody cover you and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say, like, when one of the things that kind of annoys me when I see these conversations or people talking about kind of justifying the role of a content creator is like, we have to be rooted in reality though. And like there was a time when, yeah, like as a part of my job as both a dishwasher and a retail manager, part of my job was to like clean toilets. And first of all, like I'm not putting a value statement on that because you know, I, there was nothing wrong with doing that as a career, cleaning toilets or whatever. But it is a certain level of physical demand that I just don't have. Like I had to, working in retail, working at a restaurant, you're on your feet for 8, 10
Constantly.
hours a day. Like there's just certain things. I was talking about, to one of my friends who's on parental leave as well. And it's just like, yeah, she's growing a human and she, can do that from the comfort of her home now, you
People
know?
people get to stay home when they have a cold. They're like, "Don't come into work." Women growing humans inside of
Hmm.
them have to
Yeah.
go until the day that they are pretty much
Yeah.
giving birth.
Yeah. Right.
That's always been wild to me.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, there's definitely like a lot of perks, I think, that
Yeah.
we have to acknowledge that even though I'm working more or I was watching some YouTuber, she just had a baby and she was like, "Yes, I don't get typical maternity leave, but I get to work with my baby on my lap and I don't have to put my baby in daycare right away."
Right.
Like I wouldn't trade that. So there's trade-offs to it and I just don't want to like sound like disconnected from reality. Like we've done those things. I've cleaned the toilets, I've cleaned up after wild customer stories that I could tell you from retail. I've had
Retail
to,
stories are fun. Maybe that'll be an episode.
oh,
No.
yeah, I've had to give up my nights and weekends, every weekend in college, basically. So I get it. Like there is definitely a level of like physical demand and, being present that just isn't there necessarily with content creation. However, I definitely work more and it comes with its own set of stresses
Yeah.
because in my retail job, I left my retail job at work for the most part. I think
Yeah.
when I was a manager, a little bit different because, I did go home with schedules and stuff like that I had to write, but like more or less you clocked out, you're
Right.
good.
You're like, "I'm done. I can go relax. My brain can turn off." And the
Hmm.
mental side is something that me and you have talked a lot about with entrepreneurship, with content creation, being a creator, freelancer, what have you. The mental side, I mean, I can't emphasize that one point you said enough about you don't really get to turn it off. I will say that to give everybody kind of a really yin yang experience. So my husband works at a job where when he takes a vacation day, he's off the clock.
Hmm.
And for me, I will go on vacations and I let like clients know that I'm kind of going on vacations and I've been a lot better about it and setting boundaries, but I'm still can't like go too longer than probably a day without going and checking my email, responding
Yeah.
to things because I'm a consultant too. So, I have a lot of the answers. I can help guide a lot of the conversations. So, I want to help. I love my clients. So, I also just want to go back and get into it. And part of me is also like, I'm on vacation. The big thing is taking a vacation day when you work in corporate, you're still making money that day, technically.
Yeah.
Freelancing or doing content creation, if you take the day off and go on vacation for a week, it feels like you're not making money for that week if you don't work. And so
Yeah.
it's hard to turn that part of your brain off. So you can, of course, work at turning that part of your brain off, and that's great. But it's new skills have to kind of develop when you become a content creator or join this kind of world.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's totally different. And I think the other thing for me that is really different about content creation is, you know, when I worked in retail or even when I worked in corporate, like I worked at a huge automotive company and stuff like that, people would complain, people would be mad. I would have to deal with people
Mhm.
swearing at me and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
they were mostly mad that this dress cost more than they wanted it to, or that this car had some whatever issue with it. I didn't make the car, I didn't price the dress, I was just the messenger. But as a creator, most of the attacks you're going to get are personal.
That's a great point to bring up that I didn't even think about either.
I mean, I always say that running a business, starting a business is you better be ready to do some internal work about your beliefs about yourself and all of that because it really does like tap into so many of my like rejection wounds and abandonment wounds and
Can we talk about the rejection wound?
yeah.
I for one summer when I was applying for jobs in Chicago, I had like 12, 14 final interviews and only got one at the very end of the summer. That
Mhm.
helped prep me for rejection.
Mhm.
What doesn't prep you for rejection is going into exactly what you said, where somebody like you're saying, "Hey, pick me and my content and videos of me over someone else," and they go, "Nope,
Yep.
sorry, like we have to go with this other person." It
Yeah.
hits deeper when it's you and just
Yeah.
something that you made yourself. So that's an
Totally.
amazing point of like, yeah, like when you're working on stuff in corporate, you're not as emotionally tied to
Yes.
the work you're doing, I guess,
Yeah.
either too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say that for me overall content creation is harder emotionally and mentally.
Yeah,
Physically it doesn't compare again scheduling wise it doesn't compare. I have control of my calendar. But yeah, like the mental stuff I've dealt with has been a lot, you know. I sometimes do fantasize about just like clocking in somewhere and just not really
same.
caring, having kind of like mindless work for lack of better words.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is something that you have to be prepared to deal with, I think.
Yeah, be like, oh my gosh, like, wait, if I go and like chat with someone in the office for the next hour, go get coffee, I still get paid?
Yeah.
Wait,
And
like
someone's
that little like part of the back of my brain's like, wait a second. I think
yeah.
that anybody who starts like freelancing, content creation, I think at some point you're gonna be like, I need to drop it all. I need to go to
Mhm.
corporate. I can't do
Yeah.
this anymore mentally, with how things are going. But
Yeah.
then you always kind of have to reel it back and to give everybody to like hardcore something to do if you become a content creator, which I think is the same for freelancing, is really have people in your corner. For me,
Mhm.
it's the lovely Latasha, it's my hubby, and my mom. Those three offer me very unique, specific perspectives that I need to know when a crazy brand deal might come through. I'm dealing with some problems. They all offer great insight. And I have to say that without this foundation for myself, I would not be anywhere near successful or even where I'm at right now at all without that. I mean, heck,
Yeah.
I went on TikTok, which helped boost up my initial following because my brother told me to do it. It's
Mhm.
like you need people in your corner. Don't think that entrepreneurship and content creation, although it looks like it, is a solo endeavor.
Yeah, that's a great point cuz yeah, with most jobs, you're on a team. You have a
Yeah,
manager, you have a leader who you can go to when something goes wrong. And content creation isn't like that. I mean, you could have mentors or things like that, but yeah, I think it is really important to have a community, have a support system for sure. Can we talk a little bit about the reality though? Because I do think, like I said, I think a lot of people they get angry and they're like, content creation isn't a real job because they think content creators are just whipping out their phones leisurely once per day and then just like getting paid like $1 million per brand deal. Cause we see these things. We see that like Kylie Jenner gets paid $20 million per Instagram post or
yeah,
whatever. But like that is like the top of the top, right? Again, I talked about this in another episode, like the journeyman creator, right? The working creator is not making that amount of money and is putting in a lot of work, I would say on average. Can we talk about our beginnings maybe or like
yeah,
even our realities now? Like, yeah, I
yeah. I
think I'm
think
be well for myself, but I'm not a
right.
millionaire, a multi Kylie Jenner millionaire,
Right, I think
billionaire.
a right out of B. I think so. I would say the best way to describe this is it's okay. I read this one book. It's called Ikigai. Ikigai. It's a blue book. If you look it on Amazon, Ikagi. I'm sure if it's not spelled correctly, it will come up. And it's about people who live in the blue zones.
Okay.
But it's not just like talking about the people who live in the blue zones. It's about really like the mental experience of finding your passion, living longer, And I might be actually mixing two books. Ikigai is the book you want, though, and it talks really about finding your worth. And the one thing they always bring up is Miyazaki, the
Mm,
person who made Studio Ghibli what it is and has written all these things. And he talks a lot about him in that even till today, he's in his office, head down, drawing sketches for what's on his brain, future movies, what have you. Like he loves what he does. It's still work.
yeah.
You can, and I think that that's where like you hear people say like, if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. And that to me is toxic because you mix that with the people who look like they're not doing much
Yeah.
in that idea. People are going to think like, oh, I'm not really finding what I love. And I could just be doing that, like these Instagram model people. And it really feels like it, it's since it's such a it's hard to explain that balance because I do love it so much, but to give everyone the true reality, I mean, I sit in my house most days for the past 2 years with myself. And I'm a very social butterfly person, so
Yeah.
that's hard. But would I rather be spending those 8 hours of silence in a corporate where I am crying in the parking lot like I was over
Hmm.
things that are bogging me down and stressing me out? No, I love it. I love just sitting in silence, listening to lo-fi music, going to coffee shops, and that makes up my day too for a day to day of a content creator. But a lot of it is sitting in silence, editing my videos on my phone, editing them on my desktop, thinking of ideas with myself.
Yeah.
Like you, over time, I feel like I've had to develop such a good relationship with myself to
Hmm.
go on this content creator journey. And by the end of the day, my eyes can barely stare at a screen. But then I just realized I didn't post my one Instagram. And I said, okay, I know you edited for 4 hours today and did client work for the other four, but it's 5:30. It's already dark out. You gotta get that post out on Instagram because you really want to
Yeah.
get it out today.
Yeah.
Uh, and you got to stay consistent. So there's like these mental things that bog you down a little bit still that have to push you and throttle you to do content and all this other stuff. But the end of the day, it's like you're like, I can't. This. I need eye drops. I need a nap.
Okay.
What is it like for you? Kind of like
Well,
day to day.
first, I think it's funny, but it's very valid. I love that you're bringing up the eye thing because I never wore glasses until I became a content creator. I literally fried my eyeballs in 2020,
Oh,
2021. I went to go renew my driver's license and they're like, "You can't read that." Yeah, you need glasses. I was like, "Oh my gosh."
you're like, wait,
And
what?
yeah, and so these are very just like I don't know, a carpenter probably is more prone to getting like arthritis or,
Yeah,
whatever, getting injured on the job or like there are real like career things or real physical things that happen from this career. And I do,
yeah,
I think that is important to note. Sedentary, being super sedentary and being holed away. I gained like 30 pounds, I mean, part of that was like pandemic related, but I realized I was like, wow, I'm like not healthy personally. Not that weight is the ultimate determination of health. Just putting that disclaimer out there. Don't cancel me. But I was
yeah.
not at my healthiest after having my biggest year in business. So yes, there are definitely career risks, if you will,
Right.
or physical risks from this career. But anyway, yeah, I think the things I agree with all of what you just said, but I think the other things that people don't see or don't think about are the stress levels of not just like weird weirdos being weird on the
Hmm.
internet and being mean to you, but also like the brand deal stuff. I've had brand deals keep me up at night because I'm like, oh my gosh, this video just tanked and they're mad at me. I'm mad at me. Whatever, my audience is mad at me because maybe it wasn't the best fit or and there are real things that you have to report on and give people, and there are deadlines for things. I've had to just recently, because I'm doing this kind of like snowbird thing, I filmed 5 podcasts in like one day, which was very stressful. I mean, that is
Yeah.
again, if we think about what an ad agency would do or what a video production company would do, there would be multiple team members involved. There would be a videographer, a sound guy, a hair and makeup person, a wardrobe person.
Right.
That was all me times five in one day because I wanted to get my content shot so I could go travel.
Right.
So I do think, again, and I'm not trying to say like, woe is me. It was also fun in
No,
its own
I
way, but
I
it's a lot
made
of jobs.
can I share a connection I just made from what
Yeah.
you just said though?
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned the team being a part of it, right? Cool. All of the joy, all of the perks that will come from this content are shared.
Hmm.
Your solo entity doing this, the the one thing I actually always end up bragging about you because I say, yeah, my friend Latasha has this YouTube channel, and people go, okay, cool. Kind of going back to the kid conversation a
Yeah.
little bit of like
That's a cute
the
little
response.
hobby. Oh,
That's
your
such a
cute
cute
little
little
friend.
hobby. Uh, and I said, no, you don't understand. Like she has more subscribers than like a news station that employs 20 people and gets more reach than them too. So I think that to kind of connect the dots for people on this day-to-day experience of like, yeah, your example of like, I didn't have a team and I had to shoot 5 episodes for, just to make sure I can keep my life that I want. It's that you get to also relish in the complete joy and the money that
Yeah.
comes from creating that type of content later on, maybe. It all gets on you. So it's almost like
Yeah.
a weird like your bar kind of gets lowered more because
Yeah.
you're a content creator on your own, but then it gets increased higher
Totally.
too because it's kind of like the in skating when they like whip somebody around to be faster.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what you are for yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to be that way too to pull yourself through, I think, a
Yeah.
little bit too.
That's such a good point. And all the credit. Honestly, like it does tickle me. I'll be honest when people are like, "Oh, I like your sound quality's good," or "I like your editing," or "I like your makeup," or I'm like, "Thank
Mhm.
you." Like I did that. Like if
I
I
did
I
that.
did it myself, literally.
Right. And then to even add to this like full circle moment too. Yeah, I think like one shout out to my brother who like always I have two, they're both amazing. But the one in particular, whenever I see him, is always like, yeah, I'm always just like bragging to everybody. Like, yeah, he started his own business. Now he makes videos and he's like making full-time money from it even. And it's just like he's just doing his thing. Like it's so
Yeah.
great. Versus if I was like a team, who do you kind of give credit that to? Obviously it's
Mhm.
all split
Mhm.
for the most part. But I want to say too that going full circle with it, that if the time comes to it where you have your time in the trenches a little bit, now I'm getting brand deals that are a really good amount of money to where I could probably hire a makeup person for the day.
Yep. Yep.
And then say, hey, I'm shooting this video with this brand collab. I know how much I'm making from it. Let me give a percentage of that to makeup person, a hair person, to buy new clothing for myself.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe and that really helped me connect the dots of the future for me of something that I think I do want is being able to have a team
Yeah.
again. But it's not the agency team I thought I was making with my consulting services. It's my brand team to
Yeah.
help fuel my Michigan stuff, my website, me.
Yep.
So there it is kind of funny just how sometimes you find your way back to something maybe that you wanted. Like I love communicating with people. I love talking. Us doing
Yeah.
this podcast. I feel like you end up making things don't end up being what you thought they were going to be, but
Yeah.
they still can be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's end on this question that you posed earlier, which
Yeah.
is do you think would you recommend it? Would you recommend somebody leave their corporate job to pursue content creation full time?
I think after, I didn't think this was going to be the answer, but I was going to say I kind of think back to if I was watching this 4 years ago or 5 years ago, if you listen to this podcast and the positives made you more excited than the cons could bring you down, then I think there might be that little bit of a spark in you to say, maybe I should start making content. Maybe being a creator is for me. One thing that, and I don't know if this will resonate with anybody listening, but after reading that Ikigai book,
Mhm.
I thought of kind of a mantra for myself. A lot of people get it tattooed. I can't really get tattoos because of certain things of my skin, but I mine is I was created to create. And I
Mm.
really didn't get that until I started doing my digital marketing work, which is interesting.
Mhm.
Like I didn't start being able to think about that kind of stuff. So I would say that if that resonates with you at all, you might just be a creator and you should maybe give it a shot and think about things.
Yeah.
Like I was going to say, and more think about things while you're at your corporate job, maybe start saving up and maybe you take that leap. That's what I did. I saved up essentially so that I would have livable expenses for 6 months, and I gave myself the shot. And I got one client, or maybe for you, it's creating content while you're still working corporate and trying to get that first brand deal,
Yeah.
and then going from there.
Yeah, I think that's my thought is I'm a big believer in taking calculated risks.
Yes.
And I feel like where a lot of people go wrong with this is they're like, you know what? I believe in myself. I am born to create. So I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and just
Right.
do it. And I love that energy. I love that spirit. Maybe if you're like 20 years old and you have virtually no responsibilities, financial obligations, that kind of thing, maybe you
Right.
can do that. For somebody like us who had to make the choice of leaving a career, who had, financial responsibilities, other pressures, things like that, I think you do have to do it carefully and you need to create a minimum viable product, meaning actually create the thing, actually get some reps in, get some data to look at so that you can make an informed decision. I
Yeah.
wasn't replacing my full-time income by the time I quit my full-time job, but the math was mathing. Like if I was like, okay, well, I'm making this much with like
Right.
10 hours a week, so times 4, cool.
When the
Um,
maths, it's good.
right. And then the other thing really quick that I want to talk about too is it's funny because like, I mentioned this that I don't like introduce myself as like a full-time content creator.
Yeah.
I still kind of think of even though now I can confidently say like I've made multiple six figures
Right.
from just content creation related work, like not even including like course sales and stuff like that. So now I think I feel like I can own that title, but I still think of content creation as kind of like the supplement to my full-time job, which is my business. I just say that again, not to say that you can't go like the more entertainment route, but I do think it is important, like just like when we talk about TikTok, like don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Don't quit your full-time job to just, I don't know, talk on a podcast all day. Like
Right.
think of like what those revenue streams are going to be really strategic about it. Are you going to do brand deals? Are you going to sell stuff? Are you going to, you know, lend your talents to hosting or, other things? Because yeah, if you don't have those plans, if you don't have those revenue streams kind of thought about, you're going to end up stressed out, taking things out of desperation and probably going back to a job that is way worse than the job you currently have.
That's, I think I honestly, I have no notes.
No doubts.
I think you explained it perfectly. And everybody, if you need to, go back, rewind, and start where Latasha just started talking. That is the exact answer I think anybody should roll with,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
And have fun with it. Don't put so much
yeah,
pressure
I
on
think,
it
oh, yeah,
also.
I guess one little light note too to add to it is that, just to double down on what Latasha was saying, the path will kind of like be strategically trying to forge your own path. It will come to you. You're not gonna just start the podcast and make money and that's your career. That's not how anybody gets to where they want. So just start with baby steps, see what works, get something to work,
Hmm.
and then keep going at it. Repeat that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're
So.
proof of that with our, like, I don't know, shout out to our 60 or so subscribers on YouTube. Do you want to become one of them?
You all should want to become one of the subscribers. But yeah, really subscribe, you guys, if you enjoy the content and want to
Leave a
continue
review.
watching us. And
Leave a
leave a
review
review
too.
too. I
We'll
feel
read
like
some once we start to get some.
the reviews that have already coming in, I love, and even the comments on our YouTube video for anyone who's just listening or watching. We are on YouTube. We're on every podcast streaming platform you want, and we're here to talk even just more about our experiences as content creators, things like this. And we hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.